Behold, Spiderframe has arrived. Have you ever wanted to become a Spiderframe? Today, I'm going to show you how you can wield incredible arachnoid powers, punch your enemies to death with your spider fists, and fire off your spider submachine guns to destroy them from range. My name is Andy, welcome to FrameWork, my series of Warframe builds and weapons built specifically for them. In this case we have Valkyr, and Valkyr has the highest base armor of any Warframe in the game, so she's very tanky on very minimal mods. Using the Hyrudo, which has passive healing when it crits, we can be very powerful, very able to sustain ourselves with very little effort. So I put a whole bunch of nonsense in. Handspring to make sure we don't get knocked down while punching stuff, because if we stop punching stuff, we're gonna die. We have Gladiator Aegis and Gladiator Finesse, not because they increase our survivability by so much, but because this allows us to use spots in our Warframe to make our weapon more powerful. This lets us do more melee damage by using Warframe slots, which is powerful since we don't really need the space for anything else. Besides Steel Fiber and Vitality, all we're really building for this is the ability to use Eternal War effectively. Warcry will give us tons of attack speed and armor, and it will last forever. It is of the utmost importance that you do not stop punching your enemies, and you will be punching them with the Hyrudo, a glorious breakdancey melee weapon that will allow you to heal on crits. We've built basically just a normal Blood Rush build here. We're not using any status effects, we're not really going to get them, and we don't really need them. These Gladiator mods can be a little bit difficult to get, especially Gladiator Vice is very expensive, and you don't need them. Just keep in mind that you don't want to load up on elementals. That's not the best way to get the best overall damage. You probably should just use Fury here if you don't have Gladiator Vice. Just keep in mind that the attack speed is not super urgent. You might even want to use Primed Reach. These things are very close range. Now we are going to have massive attack speed on these weapons due to our Warcry with Eternal War. However, I am aware that some of you do not like Brutal Tide. You do not like the breakdancey style attacks. I understand, I do like those attacks, but it is bothersome to have to do this like split kick every time you want to hurt something, and that's totally fine. One of the great things about sparring weapons is that the quick melee is very different from Brutal Tide, so if you swap to your Axomati, this is normally what you'll do in combat, you can quick melee and it's just punches. This is faster overall, and it is very helpful. It doesn't have as good cleave, but it is very handy for just mowing down a target really fast, and then if there's any flying targets or targets far away, you can really quickly just stop punching and mow them down with your submachine guns, and then switch back to the punching. And to build up both combo counter and your Warcry Eternal War stacks, you are going to want to do that. So jump into combat, use your Eternal War. Now this is going to heavily slow enemies in the initial area that you casted, which will give you some time to build up your combo counter and get stacks of Eternal War so it doesn't run out if you start shooting. Once the combo counter is sped up, you have such high critical scaling with the Gladiator mods and Blood Rush that you will still be able to kill these heavily armored enemies. You have really good bonuses against them, you have the health to sustain attacking them. As long as you keep punching, they are going to die. And if you have trouble, even despite all of that, you can use a sparring weapon finisher. You would charge attack, and you will get an automatic finisher on any enemy you want to kill. And finish the job up nice and clean. You may be wondering, what is Carrier Prime here for? Well, you will constantly be going ham on the enemies in melee range, so you need a very tanky Sentinel, and Carrier has the largest EHP total overall of all Sentinels, so it's a really good choice when you are constantly diving into groups of enemies. This is the Sentinel most likely to make it out alive. And it will also fill up the Axomati, which is a rather ammo-hungry gun. Ho-ho, ammo case. Ho-ho, but I know why you all come to these videos. You are wondering, what is the Sakura Penta doing in a Valkyr loadout? The Sakura Penta is a bizarre weapon to use in practice, although it is very powerful with tether grenades. This allows you to fire grenades that will sort of catch enemies inside their spider webs and hold them in place for a little while, and then you can detonate the grenade manually, or it'll just detonate on its own after a little while. So these are really good for area control. One of the things that's kind of a bummer about Valkyr is she doesn't really affect the battlefield in any way. You can't really create a static effect around you and control an area. This will allow you to affect the battlefield in multiple places at once and hold down a point or whatever. With your state-of-the-art spider egg launcher, you will place a spider egg at some of the doors. Perhaps cluster a few together. And then, when the enemies spawn in, they will be destroyed by your trap eggs. We shall begin to spawn in the enemies. And you will see that my spider eggs waiting... Oh, so they don't last all that long, but you'll see that when you fire a group of eggs at an enemy, they will be held in place. And then you can control a few different areas, and after a little while, after being held in place, the grenades will blow up on their own, and the enemies will die. You can use this to control parts of the map that you are not present at. like the point. And then you can just get on with your business, and eventually your spider eggs will blow up on the point and defend it. So they may not last that long, but you can lay your spider eggs on any point you want to defend, and rest assured that once you swap off, they will explode on their own after gathering up some enemies, and they will kill whatever is attacking your nest. Now, multi-shot is a bit finicky on this weapon. You can only fire out 5 grenades at once with the penta, and multi-shot grenades do count as additional grenades. So if you run split chamber and vigilante armaments, which you would want to get the most damage out of this weapon, you're not going to be able to spread your grenades around as much, and you also have to stop firing after 3 trigger pulls, maybe even 2. So that's not as good with tether grenades. We need to talk about the Axomati build. Although it's extremely normal, this is really just a normal damage build with crits and status that is balanced for having both heat and corrosive. I find that when you are shooting enemies with this thing in practice, you do want them to get a heat proc. It's not going to kill high level enemies fast enough for the corrosive to be enough on its own, so you do want to heat proc them to keep them in place with that fire effect, so that you can continue stripping their armor and killing them with corrosive procs and crits. Still a good weapon, still a fun weapon to use, pretty decent hipfire, you don't lose much by not aiming down sights, so that makes it a fairly good, like, quick fire weapon alongside quick meleeing with the Hyrudo. Now go forth from your spider bat cave and destroy your enemies with a Spiderframe Valkyr. I hope you enjoyed this framework build. To look at others like it, check out my framework playlist, or just look for the film reel style thumbnail when I upload content in the future. You may be particularly interested in my frameworks for Inaros, Oberon, and Chroma, which are all also sort of melee tanky playstyles, but use their abilities for very different things and wield very different categories of weapons. I will leave you to check those out in the description if you so desire. Thank you all very much for watching. Subscribe if you had a good time. Check me out elsewhere on the internet in the description, and I'll see you all next time.